The power had gone out in the building hours ago, but no one stayed long enough to notice, except for the man sitting alone in the top floor office, surrounded by darkness. The only light came from the city outside, flickering through the tall glass windows like distant stars. It was quiet, painfully quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes your heartbeat sound louder than your thoughts. And that was when he finally broke. Ethan Hale, the CEO of Hale Industries, the youngest self-made millionaire in the city and the man everyone feared, or pretended to admire, sat on the floor behind his massive desk, knees drawn to his chest. His trembling fingers pressed against his eyes as he tried to silence the grief clawing its way up his throat. He had spent years building a reputation of stone. People said he was cold, unreachable, unshakable, and he let them believe it. But tonight, nothing was left of that man. A single sheet of paper lay beside him. A medical report, the one he had avoided opening all day. He had gone through billion-dollar negotiations without blinking. He had survived hostile takeovers and public scandals. But this one paper had undone him. He buried his face in his arms and cried until his ribs ached. Downstairs, the emergency lights flickered. The cleaning crew had already left, all except one woman who stayed behind whenever the building lost power. She didn't like going home to her empty apartment in the dark, and she often waited until the electricity returned. Her name was Marcia. She was in her late 50s, hair streaked with gray, hands roughened by years of hard work. She didn't complain. She didn't ask for favors. She simply swept the floors, cleaned the desks, emptied the trash, and smiled quietly at anyone who greeted her. Most didn't. 3 months ago, she had been fired, by him. Not directly, of course. CEOs didn't do the dirty work. But her name had been on the list of cost reduction. He had signed the paper. He remembered because she had looked at him with eyes that held no anger, only sadness. Almost like she understood. He had never forgotten her face. She should not have been here tonight. She had been hired back last week, but she didn't know why. She assumed someone in HR had made a mistake. She didn't question blessings. Life rarely gave her any. Her flashlight glowed dimly as she pushed her cleaning cart toward the top floor. She always started from the bottom, but tonight something nudged her upward. Maybe it was the darkness. Maybe the silence. Maybe, she would later say, it was God's plan. When the elevator doors opened to the executive floor, she stepped out and paused. The whole space was dark. The kind of dark that feels heavy. She clicked her flashlight on and whispered to herself, just a quick check, then I'll go. She walked slowly, pushing her cart down the hallway until she reached the CEO's office. The door was open. She froze. No one ever left that door open. Not the assistants, not the managers, and certainly not the CEO. Her light entered the office first, sweeping over the expensive furniture, the glass table, the untouched shelves. Then she saw him, a man curled in the corner, shoulders shaking violently. She gasped softly, instinctively stepping back. But then, she heard it. He wasn't sleeping. He wasn't resting. He was crying. Raw, broken, painful crying. She hesitated. Rationality told her to leave. This was none of her business. The last time she was near that man's office, she had lost her job. She still remembered sitting on the bench outside the building, clutching her termination letter like it was a death sentence. And yet, she stayed. She set her cleaning cart aside, walked to the doorway, and whispered, "Sir. Are you all right?" He lifted his head, startled, and looked at her with swollen eyes. His face, usually sharp with power, looked young, almost like a lost boy. "I'm fine," he choked. He was not. She stepped in carefully. "Sir, you're on the floor. And you look like you've been crying for a long while." He turned away. "Please go." Something about his voice, more plea than command, made her sit on the floor across from him, leaving space, giving him air. "You don't have to talk," she said softly. "But you also don't have to be alone." No one had said that to him in years. The tears came again before he could stop them. He tried to speak, but the words cracked in his throat. And so she waited, silent, patient, present. He finally managed, "I got some news today." She nodded gently. "Bad news. The worst kind," he whispered. He looked at the medical report as if it were alive. "My mother," he said. "Stage 4. They said, there's not much time." Her breath caught. She knew that pain. She had lost her husband in the same way 8 years ago. She had worked double shifts for 2 years trying to pay for treatments that never helped. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. He pressed his palm against the floor, as if anchoring himself. "I've spent my whole life running this company. I hired people, fired people, cut costs, saved money, built everything from nothing, and now, I can't save the only person who ever believed in me." His voice broke. "And I don't know what to do." Marcia felt tears sting her own eyes. She leaned back against the wall and exhaled slowly. "Sir," she said gently, "can I tell you something?" He nodded weakly. She looked at him with the kindest eyes he had seen in years. "You fired me a few months ago." His face drained. He swallowed hard, shame pouring into his chest. I didn't know. I mean, I signed things, She raised a hand. "It's all right, I don't blame you. But I hurt you." "You did," she admitted softly. "But sometimes life closes doors for reasons we don't understand until later. I got another temporary job for a while. It wasn't enough, but I survived. Somehow, I was hired back here again. I asked them to rehire everyone on that list," he confessed quietly. "I didn't say why, but I felt guilty." "I'm sorry," she smiled sadly. "Guilt isn't what brought me here today." He looked up, eyes questioning. "Pain did," she said. "And maybe God did." He blinked, confused. "When my husband was dying," she whispered, "I never cried at home. I never cried at work. I always waited until everyone was asleep. One night, I was sitting outside the hospital, crying in the dark, just like you. And someone sat beside me. A stranger. They didn't try to fix anything. They didn't tell me to be strong. They just sat there and let me cry." Her voice softened. "It saved me." He stared at her, feeling something in his chest loosen, something that had been tight for years. "Sometimes," she said, "the only thing we need is another human being who doesn't walk away." They sat in silence for a long moment. The storm outside softened. The building felt warmer. Ethan wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "I don't deserve your kindness." She shook her head. "Kindness isn't something we earn. It's something we give." He swallowed. "I feel like I've lived my whole life wrong." "You lived the best way you knew how," she said gently. "But maybe now you get to live differently." He looked at the paper again, pain flickering through him. "I don't know how to be there for her. I don't know how to talk to her without breaking down." Marcia reached forward and touched his hand, not tightly, just enough to remind him he existed. "Then break down," she said softly. "Cry with her. Hold her hand. Tell her you're scared. Tell her you love her. Don't waste the time you still have trying to look strong." His throat tightened. "Love," she whispered, "is not about pretending to be unbreakable. It's about breaking together, and still holding on." A tear rolled down his cheek. In that moment, he felt something shift inside him. A lifetime of walls, cracking. A lifetime of silence, shattering. A lifetime of loneliness, melting. He felt human. He didn't know how long they sat there, but when he finally stood, he felt different. Lighter, weak, but honest. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I never thanked you before. For your work, for your patience, for this." She smiled, wiping her own cheeks. "Just promise me one thing, sir." He nodded. "Anything. When you go to see your mother," she said, "don't go as the CEO of Hale Industries. Go as her son." He closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt like one. The next morning, the building lights flickered back on. Workers returned. Phones rang. Life continued, unaware of the moment that had changed everything on the top floor. But when Ethan Hale walked into his office, his assistants gasped. He looked different, softer, human. He immediately called HR and said, "I want to meet every employee we laid off this year. Every single one." He canceled 3 investor meetings. He booked the earliest flight to see his mother. He sent a message to the board, "Family emergency. I'll be gone for a week." But before leaving, he walked to the janitorial closet, where Marcia was storing her cleaning supplies. She looked up, surprised. He held out a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A thank you," he said softly. "And a raise. And extended paid leave for the time you need to rest. You've spent your whole life working. Let the world work for you at least once." Her eyes widened. "Sir, I don't need." "I know," he said. "But you deserve it." For the first time, she hugged him. He stood stiff for a moment, then slowly wrapped his arms around her. "You'll be all right," she whispered. He nodded. "I know. Thanks to you." He left the building, stepping into the sunlight with a heart still aching, but alive. When he reached the hospital, his mother looked up and smiled. "Ethan, what's wrong, sweetheart? Your eyes." He sat beside her, took her fragile hand in his, and said the words he had never said in his life. "Mom, I'm scared." She pulled him close, stroking his hair like she did when he was a boy. "Oh, my son," she whispered, "come here." He cried in her arms, and she held him, and the world finally made sense again. A week later, when he returned to the office, people whispered. Rumors spread. Some said he had changed. Some said he had gone soft. They were wrong. He hadn't gone soft. He had finally woken up. And every night after that, when the building was quiet and the world seemed heavy, he would leave a small lamp on in his office, so no one would ever sit in the dark, crying alone, without being seen. Because one woman, whom he once fired, had taught him the greatest truth of all. Even the strongest fall, but they rise again, when someone reaches out a hand. And sometimes, that someone is the person you least expect. Sometimes life breaks us in places we never expected, through people we never imagined, in moments we never planned. But healing often arrives quietly, in the form of a stranger's kindness, a gentle voice, or someone who simply refuses to let us sit alone in the dark. Remember this: strength is not about hiding your pain. It's about allowing yourself to feel it, and still choosing to stand again. And whenever life becomes too heavy, may you find someone, like Marcia, who sits beside you, listens without judgment, and reminds you that you were never meant to walk this journey alone. Because in the end, it isn't wealth, power, or success that saves us. It's compassion, it's humanity, it's love.